member for Putney for securing this debate on an important topic. She's a new member here, and she's certainly starting with a very, very good cause indeed on behalf of her constituents. As a new member, she might not know that a particular parliamentary tradition has been broken this evening. Not by her and not by me. But I believe, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's part of the standing orders of the House that the Honourable Member for Strangford should be present in every adjournment debate. And this is the first one, in my experience, in my time in this House since 2010, that he's not been here. So I thought he deserved at least an honourable mention, because I know he would have intervened with a salient point on this very subject. Step-free access to stations and transport accessibility more generally is, of course, vitally important, not just for London, but for passengers across England, as the Right Honourable Lady said. I strongly believe that everybody should have equal access to transport services and opportunities, and that it should be as smooth and seamless as possible for all. Transport isn't just a key to economic opportunity and activity. It allows us all to explore, to see, meet friends, communicate, go to see family, and do all the things that we all love to do. And as a former chairman of the all-party group for parliamentary group for learning disabilities, I'm very aware of the power of the purple pound and how actually we need to work much harder in this area to achieve a truly accessible railway and tube network for people with disabilities and as she highlighted in her speech, mothers, anybody that needs help with accessibility. East Putney, like many stations across both the rail network and underground network, dates from a time when the needs of the disabled and less mobile passengers were simply not considered. Thankfully now we give these considerations far more thought. Of course, there is more to be done, and it's absolutely right that both Transport for London and the department that I'm here representing tonight, the Department for Transport, do all we can to ensure and that we make their older stations accessible to all in a speedy and cost-efficient manner. Step-free access at East Putney Station, as the Honourable Lady knows and said, along with all the stations on the underground network, is a matter for the Mayor and Transport for London. Transport for London has an ongoing programme, as she mentioned, to make stations across their network step-free and more accessible for everyone. And I understand that over 200 stations on the TfL network are now step-free, including 79 underground stations. But with a large number of old stations, I understand it is costly and time-consuming to make these fit for the 21st century, and that works must be prioritised. Transport for London have a range of criteria to determine which stations to next make step-free, including current access to step-free public transport, the number of journeys through a station, and the feasibility of delivering step-free access at that station. Against these criteria, I understand East Putney Station has not been included, as the Honourable Lady said, in the current TfL business plan under that programme, and that TfL are therefore unable to confirm a timescale for the station, making the station step-free. I know from her speech that this is very disappointing to the Honourable Member, and I do sympathise that sometimes Transport for London and the Department for Transport cannot achieve things for all of our constituents as quickly as we would like. Despite this challenge, I'm pleased. My department works very closely with the Transport for London, and I'm glad to see that they recognise the importance of this work and taking action for the benefit of residents and visitors alike. I thought I should say something about what my department is doing. Obviously, my department has no real say over what Transport for London does, but for our part, it is moving forward with delivering a whole inclusive transport system, and our inclusive transport strategy sets out the key policy and investment priorities to make this happen. We're making the rail network more accessible through the Access for All programme, and this funding is part of the Network Rail Enhancements portfolio for Control Period 6. Network Rail work in 5-year control periods, and is therefore only available for mainline train stations. To receive funding, stations are nominated by rail industry and then selected on a range of criteria, including their ability to provide value for money for the taxpayer. More than 200 stations have been made accessible as part of the programme, and around 1,500 have received smaller scale enhancements such as accessible toilets, or tactile paving and the like. I've been lobbied very hard by a huge number of members of Parliament who have stations in their constituencies which do not have proper accessibility. I believe my honourable friend for Broxtowe behind me, well, I know he's behind me now because I can hear his breathing, but he has lobbied me very hard because a certain station in his constituency has not been included so far, Beeston. And in my own constituency, there's a station, I've only got one train station, Long Buckby, and I know it is very, very far down the list of, to make it a truly accessible station. But we have made £300 million available to add another 73 stations to the Access for All main programme. This is in addition to accessibility improvements delivered as part of other projects or infrastructure renewals. On the 26th of February this year, the department announced 40 projects covering 124 stations selected to receive smaller scale access improvements like new lifts, accessible toilets and customer information screens. In addition, I hope, we've been trying to bend the Chancellor's arm, that tomorrow I'm hoping, fingers crossed, touching wood and not pre-announcing anything because that would get me into trouble, that he might announce another £50 million to add another 12 or so stations to the main programme. Although London Underground stations are not eligible for this funding, numerous mainline stations in London have benefited from this programme in the past, and I'm quite sure will do in the future. It is true that London no longer directly receives a revenue grant from the government. However, the Mayor does now receive a greater proportion of business rates income to direct towards his priorities, and this funding forms a significant proportion of TfL's overall income. I'm glad to see that station accessibility appears to be one of his and these priorities. So in closing, I guess I should thank the Honourable Member for raising this important debate. As I've said, I'm committed to making transport accessible for all, but I've no doubt that this is a significant challenge going forward, and it will require all of us interested in transport to work together for the benefit of passengers. As I've said, as ever, my department wants to learn how we can do transport accessibility better, as well as share our learning from our own projects. The Honourable Member for Putney wanted to challenge Transport for London and did so in her speech on their decision not to include East Putney on their current step-free access programme. She really did that today in an excellent contribution to this debate. And she asked me to approach TfL. I'll happily do that. I think I'm in relatively constant contact with them over a whole range of issues. And when it comes to more funding for TfL, well, they are a devolved body and they do, as I mentioned, get their money from business rates funding. But I will definitely and happily work with TfL going forward because everybody wants to see better accessibility across the whole of our rail and tube network.